The automatic doors at St. Mary's Hospital slid open with a sharp hiss, cutting into the slow Tuesday afternoon like a blade. For a split second, everything just stopped. Phones that had been ringing non-stop suddenly went silent mid-conversation. A nurse fumbled her pen, and when it hit the tile floor, the sound cracked down the hallway like a gunshot. Cups of coffee hung frozen halfway to people's mouths as every head turned toward the entrance. And that's when I saw him. James Hawk Davidson, president of the Hells Angels Desert Ridge chapter, filled the doorway like a storm moving in. 6'4", about 250 pounds, wrapped in leather, tattoos, and old scars that looked like they'd each come with a story nobody would dare ask about. His black vest displayed the unmistakable Death's Head patch, the leather worn and decorated with pins and patches that probably meant more than most people earned in a lifetime. His boots were heavy and beaten from the road, leaving wet tracks across the polished linoleum. Rain dripped from his long hair, tied back in a rough ponytail, and his face, lined by years of wind, sun, and whatever life had thrown at him, was locked in a look of absolute determination. But it wasn't the biker that shocked the entire emergency room into silence. It was what he held. In those huge arms, cradled like the most fragile thing on earth, was a little girl. 5 years old at most, unconscious, limp. Her pink jacket was soaked, not with rain, but with blood. One tiny arm dangled at a wrong angle, and her face was so pale it almost matched the fluorescent hospital lights. Her lips had a scary blue tint. And this man, this giant who looked like he'd stepped out of a nightmare someone else would have, held her as if she were made of glass. The gentleness in his grip didn't match anything about his rough exterior. If you believe that real heroes don't always look the way we expect, if you believe courage is doing something while everyone else freezes, if you believe family isn't always about blood, then take a second. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to True Tales Vault. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Because what happens next proves you can't judge people by the way they look. Somebody help her. Hawk's voice broke the silence. It was rough, like gravel scraping together, but underneath it was barely controlled panic. Please, she's not breathing right. That snapped the ER staff back into motion. Nurse Jennifer Hayes dropped the chart she'd been pretending to focus on and rushed toward him, her 15 years of trauma experience taking the wheel. Trauma Bay 2, now. Get Dr. Richardson. She reached out for the girl, but Hawk didn't let go. Not right away. He pulled the child a little closer to his chest, instinctively protective. His bloodshot blue eyes locked onto hers, intense and warning. I've got her, sir, Jennifer said in a calm, steady voice that didn't match the pounding in her chest. I promise. Let me help her. Hawk's jaw tightened so hard a muscle jumped in his cheek. With visible effort, he released his hold, slow and careful, like handing away the last thing he had control over. His hands shook as the weight of the little girl left them. Her name is Lily, he rasped. Lily Davidson. She's 5. She was riding her bike and... His voice cracked completely. The car didn't stop. The trauma team moved like a choreographed emergency drill. Dr. Michael Richardson, salt and pepper hair, calm eyes, steady hands, appeared beside Jennifer almost instantly. What do we have? The doctor asked. Jennifer answered while they raced down the hallway. Female child, approximately 5 years old, hit and run. Severe trauma to the left side, possible internal bleeding, broken arm, unconscious, but still breathing. to blood pressure's crashing, pulse is weak. I followed the trauma team down the hall, Hawk's heavy boots pounding behind me like thunder in a church. Even without looking, you could feel him closing in. A storm wrapped in leather. A hospital security guard stepped into his path, lifting a hand. "Sir, you can't go back there." Hawk didn't slow. His voice dropped, low and dangerous. "Try to stop me." One look at his face was enough. The guard backed out of the way without another word. Inside the trauma bay, everything exploded into organized chaos. Scissors sliced through Lily's bloody jacket. IV lines were connected. Machines beeped faster and faster. Dr. Richardson worked like a man who'd done this 1,000 times. Sharp orders, calm voice, steady hands. His team moved around him like gears in a machine. Nobody questioning anything. Hawk pressed himself against the wall, trying to take up less space even though he filled the whole room just by existing. His shoulders were tight, fists clenched at his sides. Blood streaked across his vest, smearing over the death's head patch like war paint. His breathing was ragged, and I noticed his hands trembled uncontrollably. "We need to intubate," Dr. Richardson said. "Oxygen saturation is dropping. Jennifer, prep for a chest tube. Could be a pneumothorax." That was medical language for her lung might have collapsed. Hawk's voice cut through the noise. "Is she gonna make it?" The doctor paused just long enough to look him in the eye. "We're doing everything we can. But, sir, we need space to work. Please step outside. I'm not leaving her." There wasn't a crack of doubt in his voice. The man sounded like granite. Jennifer's eyes shifted between Hawk and the doctor. She'd seen plenty of panicked family members, but this felt different. He wasn't just scared. He looked like a man whose entire world was lying on that table. "Sir," she said gently, stepping toward him. "What are you to Lily?" Hawk met her eyes. His were shiny with tears he refused to let fall. "I'm her father." Those 3 words sucked the air right out of the room. People glanced at each other. A massive tattooed Hell's Angel biker and a tiny little girl in a pink jacket. They looked like they belonged to different universes. But Jennifer wasn't judging. She knew better. Families don't always come in a neat package. "You can stay," Dr. Richardson said quietly. "But stay against that wall and don't touch anything." Hawk nodded once. "Thank you." For the next half hour, the room was a blur of intense medical work. They inserted a chest tube to reinflate Lily's lung, set her broken arm, looked for internal bleeding, and stabilized what they could. Through all of it, Hawk didn't move, didn't speak. He leaned against the wall like a statue carved out of grief and fear, eyes glued to his daughter, lips moving silently, prayer, promises, or maybe both. That's when Diane Foster, the hospital administrator, appeared in the doorway. Tight smile, expensive suit, the kind of woman who sees rules instead of people. She motioned sharply. "Jennifer," a word. Jennifer stepped out into the hallway, leaving Hawk alone with the medical team. Diane leaned in, her voice clipped and irritated. "Do we know who that man is?" "The child's father," Jennifer answered carefully. "A Hell's Angel biker," Diane hissed, like the words tasted bad. "There are 6 more of them sitting in our waiting room. 3 families have already asked to be moved. This is a hospital, not a motorcycle rally." Jennifer's jaw tightened, and I could tell she was holding back everything she really wanted to say. "That man just watched his daughter get hit by a car," she finally said. "He carried her in his arms all the way here. He probably saved her life because he didn't waste a second. Right now, He isn't a biker or a patch or a reputation. He's a terrified father. Everything else is just noise. Jennifer. No. Her voice snapped like a whip, steady and unshakable. I don't care what he looks like or what club he belongs to. His daughter is in that room fighting for her life. If you ask me to drag a parent away from their child during an emergency, I will hand in my badge and walk out of this hospital forever. Diane opened her mouth to argue, then thought better of it. She closed it, nodded stiffly, and walked away. When Jennifer stepped back into the trauma bay, Lily had been stabilized just enough for surgery. Dr. Richardson stood next to Hawk, explaining everything in a calm, controlled tone. Hawk looked pale beneath all that sun-weathered skin, like the color had drained out of him. The internal bleeding is coming from her spleen, the doctor said. We'll need to remove it. It's a major surgery, but kids heal incredibly well. She's young and strong. She has a good chance. How good? Hawk asked, barely above a whisper. 70, maybe 75%. He swallowed hard, nodded once, and braced himself. It took effort for him to stay upright. Jennifer noticed before any of us did. Hawk was hurt too. Blood soaked through the denim on his knee, and his left hand shook, knuckles torn open and swollen. You're injured, she said softly. I'm fine, he muttered. You're bleeding. I don't care. He looked down at Lily, now sedated, tiny under a maze of tubes and medical tape. He leaned in and took her small hand in his huge, scarred palm. His voice dropped to something fragile. Lily, sweetheart, I'm right here. You're gonna be okay, I promise. Daddy's not going anywhere. The surgical team began rolling the bed toward the elevator. Hawk walked beside them until the doors closed between them. And when they did, it was like someone pulled the last support beam out from under him. He turned, rested his forehead against the wall, and his shoulders trembled. The sound wasn't loud, just quiet, broken sobs of a father who had run out of strength. Jennifer walked up gently. Come with me. Let's get you cleaned up while we wait. Hawk shook his head hard. I have to be here when she comes out. Surgery will take a couple hours, she said. You can't help her if you collapse from blood loss or shock. Come on. He didn't want to move, but he followed her. In a small treatment room, Jennifer cleaned his wounds, scraped knuckles, a torn-up knee, ribs bruised from the impact, and wrapped everything with quiet efficiency. What happened? She asked softly. Hawk stared at the floor, voice empty. We were at the park. She wanted to try her new bike. I was teaching her without training wheels. She was doing great, laughing, so proud. He swallowed, voice breaking. I looked away for 1 second, just 1 second to answer my phone. A car flew through the parking lot. She didn't see it. I ran, but I couldn't reach her. He stopped, pain choking him silent. You got to her fast, Jennifer said gently. You brought her here. You did everything right. I should have been watching her. I should have. You're human, Jennifer cut in, placing a steady hand on his arm. Accidents happen. What matters is what you did after. Most people freeze. You acted. Stone looked up at me, eyes swollen and rimmed red. He's my whole world, he whispered. His mom passed 2 years ago, cancer. Since then, it's just been me and him. If I lose him... His voice simply gave out. I rested a hand on his shoulder, grounding him. Let's not go there, I said softly. Let's focus on what he'll need when he wakes up. He's going to need his dad, alive, steady, and ready to take care of him. Out in the waiting room, 6 more Hell's Angels sat together in a tight formation. Their leather vests and serious expressions made families instinctively avoid them, giving the group a wide berth. But when Stone walked back into the room, now patched up, hands wrapped in clean bandages, wearing a fresh shirt someone in the club must have dug out of a saddlebag, they all stood up at once. "How is he?" The man who spoke was older. Gray beard, worn face, but gentle eyes. His vest had a single word embroidered on the front. Preacher. "He's in surgery," Stone said, voice low. "They're removing his spleen. Doctors say 75% chance." The room fell into heavy silence. Then Preacher stepped forward, grabbed Stone into a tight bear hug, and held him like a brother. "He's tough," Preacher said. "Just like his old man. He'll get through this." Across the room, a woman stood up. She hesitated, then crossed the waiting area toward us, middle-aged, neat clothes, wire-rimmed glasses. "Excuse me," she said, finding her courage. "My name's Karen Walsh. My daughter's having her appendix removed down the hall. I just wanted to say—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "When you all walked in, I judged you. I pulled my daughter away from your group. But then I watched you with your son. I heard the way you spoke to him. You're clearly a devoted father. And I'm sorry. I hope he recovers." Stone blinked, stunned. "Thank you," he said softly. And that moment opened the floodgates. Over the next hour, people came to him one by one, a dad whose son was in pediatrics, a grandmother visiting her grandson, even a doctor clocking out for the night. They all stopped to offer something. Prayers, encouragement, a squeeze on the arm. Little by little, the fear faded. People stopped seeing a biker gang. They saw a father surrounded by men who loved his son too. If this story touches you, please like, share, and subscribe to True Tales Vault, a channel that proves humanity is so much bigger and kinder than stereotypes. 2 hours dragged into 3. Stone couldn't sit. He paced the room like a caged animal, unable to rest. His brothers took turns sitting with him, swapping stories about the kid, how he loved dinosaurs, could quote every single Spider-Man movie, how he was so proud to ride his new bike to show the club uncles. Finally, the doors opened. Dr. Richardson stepped out. Surgical scrubs stained and wrinkled. His face was unreadable, and Stone froze. "He made it through the surgery," the doctor said. The entire waiting room breathed out at once. "It was rough," Richardson continued. "We had more bleeding than expected, but we stopped it. He's stable and in recovery." Stone's knees almost gave way. Preacher and another biker grabbed his arms to hold him steady. "Can I see him?" Stone asked, voice breaking. "He's still under from the anesthesia," the doctor said, "but his vitals are strong. He's a fighter." "Just like his mom," Stone whispered. "She fought for 2 years." An hour later, Stone was finally allowed into the pediatric ICU. There, in a bed far too big for him, lay his little boy. Tubes, wires, monitors everywhere. His skin was pale, but his chest rose and fell. He was here. He was alive. I sank down into the chair beside Tyler's hospital bed and gently wrapped my hand around his. "Hey, little man. Dad's right here. You scared me worse than anything in my life. But you're gonna be okay. You're safe." His eyelids fluttered, eyes hazy and unfocused. "Dad?" he whispered. "Right here, buddy. I'm not going anywhere." He blinked slowly. "Did I crash my bike?" I let out a shaky laugh, half relief, half tears. Yeah, you wiped out pretty good, but you're tough, tougher than your old man. Tyler studied my face, even through the medication fog. Are you crying? Maybe a little, I admitted. But these are good tears. You're okay. Don't cry, Dad, he murmured. Heroes don't cry. I brushed his hair off his forehead with the gentlest touch I had. Sometimes heroes do cry, buddy. Sometimes the bravest thing is letting yourself feel it. His eyes slid closed again. Love you, Dad. I love you too, son. More than anything in this whole world. Hours later, Jennifer peeked in. I hadn't moved an inch. Tyler's hand was still in mine, a big, tattooed biker, keeping watch like a guardian angel. The other families wanted me to tell you something, she said softly. They're praying for Tyler, and they're sorry for judging you. I looked up, surprised. They don't owe me anything. Maybe not, she said. But sometimes seeing someone's heart reminds people we're all human underneath. Over the next 3 days, Tyler's room turned into the strangest family reunion you could imagine. Groups of Hell's Angels rotated in and out, bringing Spider-Man comics, stuffed dinosaurs, and enough sarcastic jokes to keep a 5-year-old entertained for hours. And then there were the others, the regular families. The girl who'd had her appendix removed drew Tyler a picture. An elderly grandfather brought a puzzle. Nurses who had been nervous at first eventually smiled when they walked into the room. Even the roughest-looking biker read bedtime stories and did all the voices. On the 4th day, Dr. Richardson finally gave the news we'd been waiting for. He's healing really well. Kids bounce back fast. No bike riding for at least 6 weeks, and keep a close eye on him. I'll wrap him in bubble wrap if I have to, I said. Tyler groaned dramatically. Dad, please don't. As we were getting ready to leave, Diane Foster, the hospital administrator, approached. I braced myself, expecting a lecture. Instead, she looked humbled. Mr. Reeves, I owe you an apology. I made assumptions when you walked in. I was wrong. You and your brothers have been respectful, and it's obvious you're a devoted father. I shook her hand. Thank you. And thank you for letting me stay with him. I know I pushed the rules. She smiled. Some rules exist to be broken. Outside, the Hell's Angels formed a protective convoy around my truck. Tyler waved at the nurses from the window. Jennifer stood at the entrance and watched us roll out. I never would have predicted that, a co-worker beside her murmured. That's the thing about people, she replied. They'll surprise you if you let them. 3 months later, Tyler was back on his bike, and I was never more than 10 feet away. Something in me had shifted too. The accident cracked me open in a way I never expected. I started speaking at schools about road safety. Kids listened, even adults listened. Maybe it was the tattoos and leather. Maybe it was the message. Every year after that, on the anniversary of the accident, our entire Hell's Angels chapter hosted a blood drive at St. Mary's Hospital. We called it Tyler's Ride. It became one of the biggest donation events the hospital ever had. Because sometimes the people who look the scariest carry the biggest hearts. Sometimes heroes wear leather and ride motorcycles. Sometimes the people we're told to fear are the ones who show up when the world falls apart. I'll never forget that day, the longest, worst day of my life. But I'll never forget what came after either. The kindness, the strangers who turned into friends, the reminder that beneath all the noise, we're just people trying to protect the ones we love. Tyler is 8 now, still obsessed with dinosaurs and Spider-Man. He tells people his dad is his hero, Not because I ride with a biker club, not because of the tattoos or the leather, because when he needed me most, I stayed. I didn't leave. Thank you for listening. If this story reminds you to look past appearances, to really see the person, please share it. Like and subscribe to Bike Diaries for more stories about courage, family, and unexpected heroes. Before you go, answer this in the comments. Have you ever misjudged someone at first glance and been proven wrong? Sometimes a hospital freezes when a biker walks in, but when they see what he's carrying, they remember what really matters. Not the patch on his vest, but the love in his heart.